This Qudam year has seen the start of the AMYA Muslim Youth Association lecture series. This features a diverse range of lectures by journalists, academics, and commentators invited by the AMYA Muslim Youth Association. The lectures are held at the prestigious Bet al-Futuh Mosque, the largest mosque and place of worship in Great Britain. All lectures are streamed live via Periscope and Twitter. So far, some of the lectures have included The Unseen Women in Islam by Dr. Sami Digiosa, Syria and the Refugee Crisis by Lena Sinjab, Social Media, Weapons of Mass Distraction by Marcus Gilroy Ware. This lecture was particularly relevant to today's youth, explaining the dangers of social media. Some of the points raised by the speaker were, whether it's through excessive use of social media, watching TV, or playing video games, there's an issue with emptiness. You see train carriages full of people scrolling through Facebook. People are escaping some sort of emotional distress. There's a similar pattern with video game addiction. It distracts you from issues or problems in your everyday life. The most recent lecture was delivered by Amelia Smith.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for giving up your Saturday to come to this talk on the Arab Spring. It's hard to believe that it was 6 years ago in Tunisia that a 26-year-old vegetable seller called Mohamed Bouazizi became an icon of the Arab Spring when he refused to simply pay a $7 government bribe administered to him by a government official. Mohamed Bouazizi was a guy who had brothers and sisters, he had a family to support, he had an uncle, he had a mother, and $7 for him was a full day's wage. This wasn't the first time he'd been bribed. He was poor, he was living a life of corruption, and fed up of this life, he walked to the headquarters of the provincial government and set fire to himself and ignited a series of protests across the Middle East. For the last part of my talk, I just want to touch briefly on some skills for journalism. I mean, there's so many skills which can be honed for a good journalism career, but I've just chosen 3 which I think are really important. And the first one is having an interest in people. So being interested in other people's lives and what they're doing and where they're going, where they've been, how they've got there, what's their political position. And that's not just to say that people who you agree with. So it's really easy to just chat to people who you completely agree with and who has the same politics as you and everything. In journalism, you often have to listen to people and you think, wow, I really disagree with everything you've said, but I still have to write it all down and I still have to represent you faithfully. So interviewing people, this is one of the main skills, is actually talking to people, because as I've talked about, all these stereotypes that are just built upon by different journalists copying the newspaper before them, it's surprising how if you actually talk to the people involved in that story, they will just give you a completely different point of view than that newspaper headline you've written. And second, I would say, is building trust between people, building trust between communities who you're interviewing, who you're speaking to, who you're doing your story on, and make sure you've quoted them correctly, make sure you haven't taken their work out of context. And contacts are really important in journalism. So if someone trusts you, it could take you weeks or months before they trust you enough to give you the story or to give you the interview. You certainly don't want to break that trust by misquoting them or putting their quote out of context. And then also you have access, they will trust you to introduce you to their contacts, to their community. And lastly is storytelling. So decide which platform you want to use, if you want to make radio documentaries, if you want to be on TV, if you want to be a writer. I just think that today everyone has something to say and everyone's a journalist, because everyone has a Facebook account, everybody has a Twitter account, and many publications take free content. And one of the negatives or the drawbacks of this is that people, I think generally, okay, it's a big generalization, but many people don't master their trade anymore. So I would say if you want to be a writer, learn how to write well, how to engage your audience, and it will encourage them to come back to you. You know, it's not just about the content, about finding an idea, it's also about presenting it.
The next few lectures coming up are the following. In March 2017, the lecture Blood Oil Tyrants, Violence and the Rules That Run the World by Professor Leif Wenar, Chair of the Philosopher and Law at King's College London. Also, in May 2017, Human Rights After Hitler by Dr. Chan Plesh, SOAS Centre for International Studies and Diplomacy. For more information about these lectures, visit www.jihadofthepen.org.